Okay, now I'm going to try my hardest to go as slow as possible to explain these things as we go along. And now, first off, you need to know that Hebrew days are from sunset to sunset, not midnight to midnight. Secondly, days are not named after pagan deities like ours. Instead, they're named 1, 2, 3, 4. The only difference is Shabbat, and Shabbat is Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. So Sunday is day 1, and we're going to begin here on sunrise on the 8th of Nisan, 6 days before the 14th of Nisan, which is important, and we'll explain it in a minute. This is going to be the 6th day of the week right now. It's our Friday during the day. So it was a day and a half ago for us. 6 days before Passover, Jesus went to Bethany. This is found in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. At sunset starts the 9th of Nisan. This is the start of also Shabbat. So then that means this is our Friday night, and on Shabbat, it's a day of rest and prayer. People do not do anything. They go to synagogue, and they're restricted in how far they can leave their houses, I explained in my last teaching. Then after that day is over, at sunset starts the 10th of Nisan. It's the start of day 1 of the week. It's our Saturday night. It's the beginning of day 1 for them. At sunrise on the 10th of Nisan, that is Palm Sunday morning, or today for us. On the 10th of Nisan, each household is to take a lamb and keep it until the 14th of, and then they are to sacrifice it at twilight. This is according to the law in Exodus. Not everybody is a shepherd, so not everybody owns a sheep, and so then therefore they would go and get one beforehand, and they would have it keep it in the house as a pet until the 14th. That way when they did sacrifice it, there would be a real sense of sacrifice and loss when they did. Here they are. Then this is the same day Jesus has his triumphal entry into Jerusalem, Palm Sunday, today. After that, he left and went to the city of Bethany and spent the night. So he went back to where he was. And as you can see, Bethany is on the right-hand side of the screen, and the Temple Mount's on the left. And the Mount of Olives is in the middle. It's fairly steep, but it's very doable walking back and forth. And I've done it many times. That night is the sunset, is the start of the 11th of Nisan, is the start of day 2 of the week for Hebrews, and our Sunday night. So it would be tonight. Then sunrise on the 11th of Nisan, our Monday morning comes on the Mount of Olives, and this is the day that Jesus drives out all those buying and selling in the temple, according to Matthew and Mark. During the day he taught in the temple, but in the evening he would spend the night on the Mount of Olives. Where exactly it does not say. Just the Mount of Olives. He could have slept outside. We don't know. The sunset starts on the 12th of Nisan, the start of the day 3 of the week to Hebrews, and this is our Monday night. So he sleeps all night. He gets up in the morning at sunrise, and this is the 12th of Nisan, our Tuesday morning. And all the people would get up early to come in and see him teach in the temple. And Jesus said to his disciples, as you know, the Passover is in 2 days away. So we know this is on the 12th because the 14th is Passover, the start of Passover, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified. We wonder if anybody was listening to him say this. That night at sunset is the start of the 13th of Nisan, the start of day 4 of the week for Hebrews. It's our Tuesday night. This is the day that Judas betrayed him, according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And if you need to, a friend of mine just recently wrote a book on this. He's a professor of New Testament at the University of Mary in Baylor, and you can get it on Amazon. At sunrise of the 13th of Nisan, our Wednesday morning, he's teaching in the temple during the day. Then sunset starts the 14th of Nisan, the start of day 5 of the week. This is called the day of preparation. This is where you would prepare for a Sabbath where you could do no work at the time. And at sunset in Jerusalem that day was approximately about 7 p.m. This is our Wednesday night. On the first day of this celebration, you shall remove leaven from your houses, for whoever eats anything leavened from the first day until the seventh day, that person should be cut off from Israel. This is a law, a mitzvot. On the 14th day of the month of Nisan at twilight is the Lord's Passover. This is the law according to Leviticus 23:5. Now, sunset occurs the moment that the disk of the sun completely disappears below the western horizon. Twilight is the period between sunset and complete darkness. On the first day you shall have a holy assembly. No work at all shall be done except what must be prepared to be eaten by every person. So on this particular high holy day is different than a normal Shabbat. On Shabbat you can't even prepare the food. It must be prepared beforehand. On this particular holy day you can prepare the food during the feast, during the day, that day. On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, when it was customary to sacrifice the Passover lamb, Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to go and make the preparations to eat the Passover?" This is in Mark 14. This is what a holy assembly looks like. These are Samaritans. This is a Passover that I went to in Shechem in Israel, where the northern tribes continue to sacrifice a lamb per family. Only in Judeans or Jews, these are Samaritans, only can do this, have not stopped doing this since the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. And so only the Samaritans in the north continue to do this. There's only about 300 of them. They are to take some part of the blood and put it on the doorposts and on the lintels of the households in which you eat. And just like they did in the days of Moses long ago. The blood shall be a sign to you on the houses where you live, and where I see the blood I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Israel, the land of Egypt, excuse me. This is Exodus. This is while they're still in Egypt, before they leave. You are to eat the flesh that night, roasted with fire and with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And so here you have the Samaritans preparing, and this is everybody in the town of Shechem, all 300 of them. The men are all here, and they're preparing to sacrifice or roast the lamb at this point. They've already sacrificed the lambs and cut them up. You shall eat it with your loins girded, your sandals on, and your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. Okay, this is not usually done today during the modern day time. People usually take their time in situations like this. When the evening came, Jesus reclined at the table with the 12. Now, this is the reason why they got into arguments about who is the greatest, because these are the tables that they sat at, and as you can see, they would go from left to right in importance, or in who was important. So the person of first rank was the first person there, then the host, then the guest of honor, and then in the place of least importance at the end of the table is over here on the right. When they had finished, Jesus took his disciples and crossed the Kidron Valley to a garden called Gethsemane in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Judas Iscariot knew where Jesus went often, so Judas came to the garden, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees. At midnight, the Lord struck all the firstborn of the land of Egypt. He went through the land of Egypt on that night and struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and all the gods of Egypt. He executed judgment. I am the Lord. And here's Pharaoh with his son. First they took Jesus to the father-in-law of the high priest. Then they sent Jesus bound to the high priest himself. Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in the night and said, "Rise up and get out from among my people, both you and all the sons of Israel." Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Sanctify to me every firstborn, the first offspring of every womb among the sons of Israel, both of man and beast. It belongs to me. Sunrise on this day, on the 14th of Nisan, is around 6:19 a.m. And this is our Thursday morning. This is the day everybody gathered to get ready to leave. Early in the morning, the Sanhedrin assembled with Jesus in the temple where their offices were. Then they took him to Pilate, most likely in the Antonia Fortress, which is connected to the temple, so it was just a short walk away. After that, they took him from the Antonia Fortress on the left and took him to see King Herod, who was most likely staying at his father's house, the palace that Herod built up on the western hill. When Pilate saw that he was accomplishing nothing, he took water and washed his hands in front of them and said, I am innocent of this man's blood, and washed his hands. His blood shall be on us and on our children, they declared. And then they scourged him. God took out every little bit of punishment that we deserve on Jesus. Then at 8 a.m., Pilate condemned Jesus to death. At 9 a.m., Jesus was crucified. At 12, darkness from noon until 3 fell throughout the entire land. At 3 o'clock p.m., it was all finished. The temple curtain was torn. A great earthquake came on the city and the area, and the dead rose up out of their graves. And the centurion said, Truly, this was the Son of God. And the crowd began to beat their breasts. And just like Moses had led the Israelites out of Egypt, now Jesus was leading all of us out of the grave. Remember this day in which you went out from Egypt, from the house of slavery, for by a powerful hand the Lord brought you out from this place. Day 1 in the heart of the earth. Joseph removes Jesus' body from the cross. Nicodemus and Joseph lay him in Joseph's new tomb, and they rolled a large stone against the entrance before sunset. The women arrested on the Shabbat according to the commandments. Sunset started the 15th of Nisan on Thursday night. This sunset in Jerusalem happened around 7 p.m. And this, according to Scripture, is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, his first night in the tomb. On the 15th day of the month of Nisan is the Feast of Unleavened Bread to the Lord. This is a law out of Leviticus 23:6. Sunrise on the 15th of Nisan, our Friday morning. Day 2 in the heart of the earth. That day, the day after the preparation, Jewish leaders requested guards from Pilate. They made the grave secure with guards and a seal on the stone. Sunset started the 16th of Nisan, the start of Shabbat, a day of rest, our Friday night. His second night in the tomb. Sunrise on the 16th of Nisan, our Saturday morning. Day 3 in the heart of the earth. Sunset on the start of 17th of Nisan, the first day of the week, our Saturday night. His third night in the tomb. Sunrise in the 17th of Nisan, the first day, Easter Sunday. And then we all know what happens after that.